This video is about geometry vocab, so we're going to identify, define, and name points, lines, planes, segments, rays, and angles. So to start with our first term is a point. A point is a location that has no size. So we're just going to have a dot somewhere with a letter by. When we name our point, we just use a capital letter. An endpoint is the point at the end of a segment or the starting point of a ray. So here, B and C are endpoints, or D. So we would just name it B, C, or D. A line is a path that has no thickness and extends forever. So remember, in a line, you need to have arrows at both ends to show the line goes on forever in both directions. And there's going to be 2 points somewhere located on this line. When we name it, the order does not matter. So we're going to have GH or HG, and we're going to have a line with 2 arrows above it. Another way that you can name a line is if it has a cursive letter. So we can also name it with the cursive L. A segment is a part of a line that consists of 2 points and all the points in between. So a segment, we really have to pay attention to what those endpoints are going to be. So we're going to have JK or KL or KJ. The difference between a line and a segment is that the symbol above for segment is just a line with no arrows because it's not going on. Segments are going to have a defined length. A ray is a point of a line that starts at an endpoint and goes forever in one direction. So we're going to still have 2 points on the line, but we're going to name it first with the letter that's at the endpoint. The endpoint always has to come first for a ray. When we have a symbol for a ray, it's going to be a line with only 1 arrow. Now, the arrow is always going to point to the right. It does not matter what direction the ray is pointing. Then opposite rays are 2 rays that have a common endpoint and they form a line. So if our common endpoint is P, we're going to have one ray going this way that can be with a Q and the other one with an R. So we would say that PQ and PR are opposite rays. Notice that P has to come first in both names because P is the endpoint for both of our rays. The last one then is a plane. A plane is a flat surface that has no thickness and extends forever. When we draw a plane, we usually draw it looking like a box. So think about like the floor of your house or the floor of the classroom. That would be a plane. Planes are going to have a bunch of different points. They're always named by 3 points. So we can name it HTZ, ZTH, THZ, and so on. We can switch the order of the letters, it doesn't matter. The other way that we could name it is with a cursive capital letter, so capital S in cursive. Now, the 3 building blocks of geometry are the ones that are going to have no thickness or size. Those are going to be our point, our line, and our plane. Let's look at a couple more vocab words. So collinear means that there are points that lie on the same line. Remember that any 2 points are always going to make a line. So in this case, if I have a line, B, T, R, all of those points are collinear because they're on the same line. But we only need 2 of those points to know that we have that line there. Non-collinear are points that do not lie on the same line. So for example, we could have A and C on the line, and D is going to be non-collinear because it's not on the same line as AC. So the same thing works with planes. So when we have coplanar, that means that there are points that lie on the same plane, and we need 3 non-collinear points to form a plane. So if I have R, T, and Q, this is creating a plane because there's not a line that can go through all 3 of those points. Whereas if I try to make a plane around this one up here with the R, T, and B, that wouldn't work because they're all collinear. We need another point that's not collinear. Types of intersections. So there's a couple of different intersections that can happen between points, lines, and planes. So if a point and a line intersect, they're going to intersect at a point. So for example, if I have a point S, when I draw a line through it, S is going to be the intersection. If we have two lines, those are also going to intersect at a point. Think about last year when you were doing systems of equations, when we were graphing lines, we found solution by figuring out where those lines intersected with each other. The next one is a line and a plane. So a line and a plane intersect at a point. So if I have a plane and then I have a line that's going through it, it's going to intersect at that point. And the last one is two planes. So think about when two walls meet at a corner, they are going to form a line. So if I have a plane and then I draw another plane, this line is going to be their intersection point. So let's use the diagram to answer some questions now. Number one, name 4 coplanar points. Remember, this is a plane, so 4 coplanar points. Remember that one of that needs to not be in a line with the other one, so we could say A, B, F, and H. There's multiple combinations that can happen. This is just one of them. Name 2 lines. So we have one line here, which we can name EG. Remember to put your line symbol with both arrows. And another line we could have is BK. Name 2 rays with the endpoint K. So remember, it's going to start at K and then go in a direction. So we have KB. And then we also have KD. Remember that K has to come first when we're naming a ray. Name the plane in 2 different ways. So remember that we need at least one non-collinear point to name our plane. So we can name it A, G, D. Remember that we can also name it with our cursive letter X, and we can name it with multiple other 3-letter names. Use the diagram below to answer the following questions. What's another name for ray BE? So ray BE is going this way, so instead of just using E, we also see the point C on our line. So we could name this BC with our ray symbol. How many segments do you see? So remember, segments are going to have endpoints. So when I'm looking at my segments, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember that we also have the longer diagonals, so 9, 10. So in this case, we would have 10 segments. Identify the points that are collinear with A and D. So A and D are already on the same line here. What other point is collinear with that? That in this case would be E. Now, C and B don't count because they're not on the same line with A and D. They're either on a line with A or a line with D. Because remember, lines have to be straight. What is the intersection point of segment AD and ray BC? So they're going to intersect then at point E, because that's where the lines are crossing each other. Now let's look at angles. So angles are made from 2 rays that share a common endpoint. Now, there's 3 ways to name it. We can name it as a capital letter. So if I look down at this picture, when I'm using the capital letter, I need to name by the vertex, which is U. So we could call it angle U because this is our vertex. And these are our 2 rays. Now, we always can also name it with 3 letters. And we always got to remember that the vertex is always in the middle. So I can name it angle BUS. Then we could also name it with a letter or with a number that needs to be added. So if we can write a number in our angle, we can call that angle 1. Name the requested angle looking at the figure to the right. So angle 1 is this angle here. Remember, we can't name it angle E because there's too many angles happening. If I say angle E, everyone doesn't know which angle. We're not on the same page. So I have to use 3 letters, so I can name it angle SED, or I can name it angle DES. Order doesn't matter as long as that the vertex is in the middle. Our other angle, angle 2, we can name it angle DER, or we can name it angle RED. Construct the following. So draw and label segment WT. So remember, segments have an endpoint on both sides. WT, order does not matter. Number 2, draw and label ray WT. So now, order is going to matter. W has to be that endpoint by itself, and T is going to be somewhere else between the endpoint and the arrow. Number 12, draw line WT. So we're going to draw a line with 2 arrows, and we're going to put W and T somewhere on that line. 13, draw and label ray TW. So this time T has to be the endpoint. We're going to go a direction, and W somewhere else on that line. 14, draw and label segment AB intersection CD at E. So we're going to have AB with our 2 endpoints. It's going to pass through with CD, that's a line, and that intersection point in the middle is going to be E. Last one, 15, draw an angle RED. So we have our angle, it can open as much or as little as you want. E, remember, has to be the vertex because it's the middle letter. And then D and R can go somewhere else, one on each ray.